Our presenter today is Dr. Linda M. Goldenhar. She's the Director of Research and Evaluation at CPWR. Dr. Goldenhar's expertise is in safety climate and safety culture in construction, qualitative and quantitative research methods, and intervention evaluation. She is co-lead investigator on a 5-year project entitled Enhancing Safety Climate Through Supervisory Leadership. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Linda.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me, Jessica? That's right?
Yes, you're coming through.
Terrific. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to learn about a number of exciting tools that CPWR and our partners have been developing for construction safety and health professionals, contractors, trainers, and others to assess and improve their job site safety climate. All the tools I'll be talking about today are available either on or through our website, www.cpwr.com, and are free of charge. Okay, so let's get started. We have a lot to cover in a half an hour. So just for a little teeny background on where this all started, this effort at CPWR on safety climate and safety culture. In 2012, we looked at the construction trades as well as the academic literatures, and we're surprised to find that compared to other high-risk industries, less had been written about safety climate and safety culture in construction. So in 2013, we in NIOSH invited 70 stakeholders from the construction industry, academia, government, insurance companies, and some consultants to a workshop to see if we could come to some agreement about how to define and improve safety culture and safety climate in the construction industry specifically. So here are the definitions that we came up with, the stakeholders came up with at the workshop. So you can see that in the end, they saw a difference between culture, safety culture, and safety climate, but there is a relationship. That is, while safety culture pertains to overall organizational level safety-related values and norms, safety climate pertains to what is happening on the job site and is likely more amenable to making changes. We also worked on what we thought the critical leading indicators are of safety climate and identified feasible interventions to improve it. After some additional small group work and a voting activity, the attendees at the workshop agreed on these 8 leading indicators. Now, these aren't necessarily listed in rank order, but having demonstrating management commitment first certainly was intentional because that's where it all starts. So that was the workshop, and there's a report on our website. But then our stakeholders told us that they wanted us to develop a tool based on the workshop findings that they could use in their own companies and on their job sites to better understand and improve safety climate indicators in their work. So we developed a practical workbook called Strengthening Job Site Safety Climate by Using and Improving Leading Indicators. For each indicator, the 8 that you just saw listed, there's a worksheet with 3 activities. First, an individual can review a 5-level text-based scale and determine which one best describes their company's safety climate maturity with respect to that indicator. After that, they can go through a list of possible interventions to strengthen that indicator and prioritize by when they would start or could start implementation. Either they're already doing it or doing in the short term, the medium term, or the long term. So we've distributed at least 4,000 copies of this workbook, and once it was out there, we got some feedback from our stakeholders, and so we published, in August, we published version 2.0 of the workbook, in which we simplified some of the wording based on stakeholder input And we also included our new Safety Climate Assessment Tool, or SCAT, which companies can use to assess their level of safety climate maturity across the 8 leading indicators that we talked about that came from the workshop. So let me talk a little bit about the SCAT. To create the SCAT, Dr. Tahira Probst, who is on the line, her colleague Jessie, and I carefully reviewed, the three of us, carefully reviewed all the text-based scales in the workbook. We deconstructed them into individual activities for each indicator, and then we created text-based scales for each activity. So let me give you an example. Remember demonstrating management commitment. For this one, from the initial rubric or text-based scale, we identified 6 separate activities for demonstrating management commitment. The first one you can see listed in red here is being present and visible on the job site. And then if you look down at the text in the 5-level scale, it describes ways management can demonstrate this particular activity, from being inattentive, you can see on the far left, by rarely coming to the actual job site, all the way to being exemplary by frequently visiting the job site and seeking out interactions with workers. So you can see how the scale goes from inattentive to reactive to compliant to proactive to exemplary. So for the 8 leading indicators, there are between 3 and 6 activities that we identified for a total of 36 items in the SCAT as a whole. A year ago, last fall, Tahira and I tested the SCAT with approximately 400 individuals, some from companies, some individuals that weren't part of companies, and we tested it for its reliability and validity and found it to be both reliable and valid. So we're very excited about that. And once we identified that, the next thing we did was create a website. And this is brand new, just launched, made live 2 weeks ago. So our SCAT website provides folks in the industry with an opportunity to learn more about job site safety climate, as well as take the SCAT and get a tailored report based on their answers. So I'm going to now quickly walk through the SCAT website because we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly and hope that after the webinar, folks will want to peruse it in more depth and possibly complete the SCAT on their own or with their companies. Before going there to the website, I'd first like to thank our stakeholders that spent time with us reviewing our website and giving us critical feedback for making it more usable for the industry. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, I got to say this out loud because there we go. So I hope everyone can see the SCAT Safety Climate Assessment Tool website. This is what it looks like when you click on that link. So this is the home page. You can see across the top there are 4 separate links in addition to the home page. What is safety climate? What is the SCAT? Take the SCAT and improving job site safety climate. These are some testimonials from people who have already used the SCAT, Safeway Services and Dimeo Construction and Willis Insurance. So you can click on obviously any one of these tabs to get to these websites, to get to these pages, but you can also go down and see each of these 3 boxes and learn more here, and it'll take you to that page. At the bottom of every one of the pages is this option to take the SCAT today and get started on improving your job site safety climate, and you would click on that. So I'm just going to briefly go through these to show you what's on them. Oops. So what is job site safety climate? Here we give just a brief description of lagging versus leading indicators and what CPWR has done to date, which I just talked about, and the NORA Construction Sector Council as well. Then we go down below and we see the 8 leading indicators of safety climate that were in the workbook. If I click on here, the worksheet for that particular indicator will come up so folks can look at that. And then, each one of these is available. Then it talks a little bit more about the SCAT and testimonials from the companies that have used it so far. The next tab is, what is the SCAT? And we briefly described safety climate research and the research to practice timeline that I briefly told you about, going from the literature review to the workbook, the workshop, and then the workbooks. And below that, we've got the team members, so you can meet all the team members. I'm going to skip over Take the SCAT first, because I'm going to go back to that, and I'm just going to quickly go to improving job site safety climate, how to improve it. This contains the actionable ideas from the workbook that a company can use to improve their safety climate for each indicator. And we recommend folks revisit this page after they receive their SCAT report. You can see each of the indicators are listed here. Oops, I didn't mean. And so when you click on it, you'll see the PDF with just the ideas. So let's go back to Take this SCAT so I can walk you through what a person would see and what a person would do on this tab to take the SCAT. So first of all, it explains here how to take the SCAT. It can be used either by an individual or a company. It describes how an individual can simply answer the questions and generate a report at the end. Now, if a company is interested in asking their employees to complete the SCAT, a point person from that company would contact us ahead of time. We'll generate a unique code that they can share with their employees via email or however they communicate. And then that code will appear in a drop-down list at the very end of the SCAT that employees would be told ahead of time to select. This would allow us to combine all the responses from the group in order to generate the report. And I'm going to show you what the report looks like in a minute. So this is where the description is of what to do if you're a company and you want to do a company-level SCAT assessment. So you can see below the directions, we describe specifically your entries will be anonymous, everything's confidential, there are no company names in the database, we do not ask for individual names in the database at all. So here are the two buttons where you can either click here to print a hard copy of the SCAT that they could review and enter answers at a later time. This one, if you click Start the SCAT, that will take you directly to the SCAT entry screens. So you can see across the top each of the 8 leading indicators. I'm not going to go through all these, obviously. And at the end, there are some demographic questions, 6 demographic questions, and then also the company code that a person would select. So let me just show you what it looks like to answer these questions. So you'd read these, here are those 6 activities you saw earlier. And then it tells the person to click on the gray arrow to begin rating how well your company practices each of the activities. And it just basically goes into a description of what you'll see when you hit this gray arrow. And we also, at the end, we say, please note, to make sure you're not a robot, one of the questions in this section asks you to answer by selecting a number. And I'm going to just show that to you, but I'm not going to select the right number because I don't want my data to go into our database. This is just an example. So here we saw, you know, the first activity, we'll say frequently visits. When management is present on the job site, they strictly conform, so that would be compliant. My company management initiates and actively participates in internal safety audits. And you can see it, we also provide a non-applicable because our stakeholders told us that some of these questions are not applicable to all size companies and all types of companies. So we wanted to make that option available. So I'll just click that. When employees are injured, management, for example, demonstrates appropriate organizational support for them to, for the employees involved in the injuries. And in my company, safety management system is reviewed and safety trends are analyzed annually to assure effectiveness and relevance. And here's the question about the robot. To make sure you're not a human, make sure you are a human and not a robot, please choose answer number 2. So you would do that. If you are a robot, or if you choose the wrong answer here, the data will not be included in the database because we had to make sure that we were having valid human people entering these data. So that's what would happen. People would answer it either as an individual or a company, and I'm going to show you what a report looks like. Okay. So, and as I said, there are the 36 questions, though for each of those indicators, there are between 3 and 6 items for people to answer. So here's an example of an individual feedback report. And an individual completing the SCAT either on their own, so I just go in and answer the questions, or as part of a company, will receive a summary report that looks like this. So you can see there's some background information based on the demographics that they provided. Your position is a safety manager or director, your organization is a subcontractor, your company is in construction, et cetera, number of hours worked. So those are the demographic questions. Then we go down to the safety climate leading indicator mean scores, and what you see here is a bar chart based on their responses, the average across the items for each of the indicators. And you also see a little black horizontal bar related to the bar graph, to each of the bars in the graph. And the horizontal bar represents the data that's already in our SCAT database, so folks get a comparison of where they are in terms of their overall maturity compared to everybody else in the database. And then below that, there is a table that basically gives them the quantitative data that was used to create that chart and the benchmark score over here overall, your level of safety climate maturity compared to the overall level of safety climate maturity of everybody in the database. So that's an individual report that everybody would get, even if they're part of a company. Now for the company and group report, you'll see on the first page got less of the demographic information because that comes later in the company report. But it's got a chart, just like the individual one, and then we have some text above the chart that gives them a summary of where they fell high or low on which of the indicators. And we recommend that they go back to the website and look at that, ideas for improving the indicators tab on the website. The overall chart that we see here, so again, it's the overall chart and the table. How come it's not moving? There we go. So here are the demographics, but again, this is at the company or group level. So we've got obviously more numbers to look at, and it talks about who in the company, what's the role or current position, who completed the SCAT in your company, what's the best description, and, you know, it will depend on who a company has completing the SCAT. They may ask their employees as well as their subs to do it. So this could vary. It might be a good idea, if that were the case, to have the general contractor employees filling it out as with one code and then subs with another code. Is your company union, mixed, or merit shop? And what is the number of hours you worked last year, approximate number, and we give a range. And we also have the number of people who responded and the recordable injury rate. When I made this slide, we had this going out to too many decimal points. So now it's down to 3 decimal points, and it's also, this is the average across everybody who responded for the company. What we have decided to do because of that is when we have the contact person, we will see if they can give us the RIR instead of everybody giving us the RIR, and that'll give a more accurate view of answer for this question. The other thing that's different in the company report is for each indicator, there is a bar chart showing the average scores across all of the activities and where they fall in terms of inattentive, reactive, compliance, exemplary, etc. And the raw data that was used. So you have a frequency table here, and you can see how many responses across each of the levels for each of the activities, and then the average scores. So it provides a little more insight into the responses and how everybody responded when they completed the SCAT. So that is a quick overview of all of our safety climate tools to date. You know, we have plans for creating more tools, including creating a Spanish version of the SCAT that hopefully will start next year after the first of the year. So thank you again for your time and interest and for attending today. I hope you can use these in your own work, any of these tools. And so now I will take some questions, if anyone has any. Tahara and I will take questions.